Hello, I'm Corey Gerard, and I'm here to discuss the issues we find with street gangs. So, gangs are certainly organized groups of people who are intent on empowerment and authority. And these now dangerous organizations have become drawn to disorderly conduct, such as intimidation, theft, and violence. But among those that ever joined gangs, there were some that didn't want to do bad things, but rather to just fit in and be accepted within a gang peer group. Now, groups of persons certainly feel that they have power with regard to their types of solidarity, and there's nothing wrong with that unless classified gangs try to force their will of a harmful intent onto others. Now, what if every person outside of a gang applied their principal belief that strength in numbers isn't acceptable for purposes of gaining recognition, friendship, and power, and most certainly so while exerting control over a specific domain, which is usually a neighborhood, community, or residential? Then would not billions of others be intrusive and abusive towards anyone deemed an outsider? Most street gangs, as we know, do have a type of family structured mentality which ensures that members of any gang are treated more favorably than an outsider would be. But does any traditional family ask its kin to put their safety, freedom, and very life in jeopardy for purposes that aren't rational, sensible, and sane? Gangs are certainly a much feared or much to fear classification among the whole of society, and this factor is mainly because street gangs are rebellious, organized outlaws. And again, if you are a member, then you are cool with your gang as well as being protected by them. But statistically speaking, there have been countless gang members that were injured or killed by some form of violence, even though their gangs were supposedly strong enough to protect them. And the reason why these gang deaths happened is because only everyday persons who are not in gangs wouldn't bother gang members. But law enforcement agencies and other rival gangs did not fear those deceased, slain, or they did not have as much fear for those fallen gang soldiers as any other average person did. And it is common knowledge that a lot of gangs are at war with one another because each and every gang is a separate, independent faction in which mainly labels other rivals as threats aside from law enforcement authorities, though. So gangs do not like each other, even though these dissocialized groups pretty much act the same, feel the same way, and apply the same extreme methods through their force of will, which would indicate that most or all gangs are at least on the same page regarding their very behavior of conducting themselves. But these gangs still don't like each other, and it's probably because of the differences among rival gangs rather than resembling similarities. So let's state the obvious factors in which do divide existing gang classifications. Well, the first would be color flags, much like with warring countries that went to war with one another, but those countries were at least separated by great distances and sometimes spoke different languages. Second, gangs are often divided by neighborhood, and most of them are in inner city and ghetto communities. which overstates the fact that poor persons are the ones that establish gangs or join them because middle class nor rich people do. And this factor also reveals that the street gang problem resulted from poor social conditions, because folks with better opportunities in life do not preoccupy themselves with joining street gangs. And lastly, street gangs are divided by race, even though you might find a few that are multi-race or of colors. So if it comes down to race being a factor regarding membership into a gang, then surely traditional prejudice, bias, or racism factored into that particular member's decisive, much like with other society groups. So stay tuned for part 2, and thanks for tuning in.